two writers, one just starting out, the other a bestseller. Join James Blatch and Mark Dawson and their amazing guests as they discuss how you can make a living telling stories. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello, we're delighted to be with you on the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Welcome to SPF Land with James Blatch and Mark Dawson. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, James.
How are you feeling today?
I'm okay. Not too bad. Bit tired.
Yeah, unshaven.
Unshaven as always.
Letting things go a little bit.
Well, I'm a writer.
Yeah, right, that's the look, is it?
I normally don't wear any trousers.
J.K. Rowling's always well shaven.
Let's move on, James.
You are wearing trousers.
I am wearing trousers today.
Yes, we do have a wide shot, so just to be aware.
What are you saying?
Yeah, yeah, wide angle lens. Get that all in. We've got a good episode today because we are going to talk to a former US Marine, so we all have to be on our best behaviour, who writes Space Marine stories, but has taken it upon himself. He's a very energised guy. His name is Dave Chesson. Some of you will be familiar with him because he's got a little piece of the internet called Kindlepreneur. And Dave's taken it upon himself to really become energetic in the indie area and try and teach methods that he's learned that he thinks are going to work. So he's come up with a product, which you're going to talk about in this interview today, called KDP Rocket, which is all about validating your idea before you put all the effort into writing it. So are you going to be writing a book that's in an area that can be sold, can be marketed, or are you going to be writing into an area where you are going to really struggle to stand out from the crowd? So it's quite an important, it's a type of pre-market research that big companies do all the time before product investments. Now we should say right at the beginning, and you can tell from the interview, that neither you or I have used this product. And so at this stage, we're not recommending it. However, Dave has very kindly offered us some licenses. So we've got 3 licenses to give away, which we'll do in a competition at the end of the interview. And Dave has put together a brilliant PDF sheet, a sort of cheat sheet on validating your idea, pre-market idea. So those 2 things, we're going to give away the URLs after the interview, and you can hear how Dave has put together this product. So that's it. I mean, he's a good guy, Dave, isn't he? You've not met him, I don't think?
Never met him, no. I know of him, but we haven't met. Yeah,
well, I hope we will meet this year. I've told him where we're going to be and when we're going to be there, and we'll try and coordinate to get together with Dave at some point, because I like his energy. I like people like Dave who work hard in the area and are endlessly enthusiastic, and also quite jealous of his shot he's got set up in his little basement. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see he's got a very nice setup with the camera. The same camera we're using behind me, that one, if you're watching on YouTube. The 1300D. For techie people. Okay, let's hear and we've lost Mark again. Let's hear from Dave Chesson.
About 4 years ago, I was in the military and I was stationed in South Korea, and I decided that I wanted to try to build some type of business that would allow me to get out of the military. And doing that, I was able to jump into self-publishing, and here I am today in Nashville, Tennessee, with my family, living off the money from my books.
That's fantastic. So you've done that. It's been, I can imagine you brought your kind of military discipline to this as a task, and you didn't give up lightly, and the military is a fantastic foundation for giving you the right attitude to making a project work. Having said that, you obviously are a storyteller as well. That must have been in there the whole time.
A little bit. I've never credited myself as a great writer. As a matter of fact, I remember in high school, I got an assignment from a teacher, and she said, I was like, this is going to be perfect. I could write about, my dog that just died. That sounds terrible to say out loud like that. But, it was one of those where I was like emotionally stirred, and I felt, here's the part where the great writing is going to come out of me. And I sat down, and I wrote this thing, and I turned it in. She looks at me, she hands it back, and it was a D. It was like a really bad grade. And she was a great teacher. She was hilarious. And she looks at me and she says, Dave, you're going to go into physics in college, right? I go, yes, ma'am. She goes, that's probably a good idea. So I've never said that I was this great storyteller or this great writer. But what I was is a very analytical person. I did nuclear engineering for the military. I then went into military diplomacy, and just recently I was an international arms dealer for the U.S. government as well. So it's kind of a combination of being a very numbers guy, but also understanding how markets work and how negotiation, how to talk to people really came through. But, the thing for me is that you don't have to be a good writer, but you do have to understand how to market.
Okay, yeah, and understanding how people work, I guess, is the key to a lot of those things, including selling books. So let's move on to what you're joining us for today. You think a lot about the marketing side of things, and we've spoken about this before, and I know you're a bit of a guru in this area. And what I like about what you're about to tell us is it's making sure that you've done the correct preparation before you've even created the product, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at any business out there, no business would just decide to plant a storefront somewhere, right? I mean, even McDonald's, who, has one of the most renowned burgers, whether it's a good renown or a bad renown, that's left to be seen. Yeah. But they don't just decide, hey, we're going to stick a store here in this city. They do all this research beforehand. They look at the number of traffic, the cars that go by. They look at, the other competitors and whether or not those competitors are even making money in the fast food industry in that area. And then they take all that information and they choose the best spot, or they decide not to. It's one of the options for their next McDonald's chain. And we as authors can do the same thing. But funny thing is, most authors don't know that they can do this. And so what I believe is that by doing your research, you can either stop yourself from wasting your time, energy, and money on writing a book that nobody will read, or you can make sure that you're set up from the get-go, to have a book that there's going to be people who are not only looking for it, but willing to pay for it.
Okay, so clue us in, Dave. How do you do this?
Well, the cool thing about Amazon is that it gives you a lot of great information. For example, the first thing I like to tell people is that to do your book marketing research, you need 3 things, okay? The first is you need to know what people are typing into Amazon, okay? What are people actually looking for? The second thing you need to know is whether or not those people are willing to pay for that, okay? A quick example is, somebody may type in how to tie a tie, but really they're not looking for a book, they're not looking to pay for that type of product. They're looking for something else. And the third thing is whether or not I can rank, if my book can get at the top, right? If the competition is too great. A quick statistic is that books that rank number 1 for a search term on average get 27% of the clicks, whereas the books that rank number 2 only get 13%.
Big gap.
So by having your book show up at the top, you have double the amount of people that will click than if you were number 2.
That's a big gap.
So the idea, it's huge, right? And then the idea for us is that, again, we just need to know that our book idea is something people are looking for, willing to pay for, and that the competition isn't so great that will never be discovered.
Okay, so is this the kind of market research that traditional business has, if it's good traditional business, has been doing for years? Lots of businesses, by the way, don't do their market research and then wonder why their business hasn't worked after 12 months. But bringing some of that philosophy from the better businesses into our world, and actually, I think what you're going to tell us is, in some ways, it's easier now than it ever has been to do this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Amazon is actually a search engine, just like Google, okay, where basically people go to Amazon and they type in whatever they're looking for. Now, the great thing about Amazon is that they do a lot of things to help us to kind of see why they chose certain books, why they suggested certain things, and, this information gives us that lead-in, as authors to do the right marketing beforehand. So let's go ahead and jump right into like the first one, right? Okay. How do you figure out what people are typing into Amazon, okay? The first thing I suggest to people is that, if you go to the Amazon search bar and you start typing something in, Amazon automatically auto-suggests, right? One thing I like to tell people, though, immediately is that when you do this, make sure that you're using incognito mode in Chrome, okay? The reason being is that Amazon places a lot of cookies, and they also use your profile, your account, to suggest things. So make sure that it's an unbiased suggestion and you're using Chrome incognito mode, which blocks all that. All right. So then a quick example, like I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. If I typed in the word star, you better believe it's going to say wars.
Yeah.
Or if I put in S, it's probably going to say Star Wars. whereas it might not say it for somebody else, who types something else in. So when we go to incognito mode, it completely blocks out everything. And now you have the true market information. So go into suggestion, start typing in some phrases and see what Amazon suggests. Those suggestions are things that people in the past have bought before. Okay, this is where Amazon is trying to say, hey, we considering that all these people type this one thing in, we're thinking this is what you're going to try to type in too. So this will let you know that there are people typing something in. A second thing I like to do too is, as we discussed before, Amazon and Google are both search engines. The cool thing about Google though is that they'll actually tell you not only what people are typing into Google, but how many people per month. So once I've got a good list of popular Amazon terms, I like to turn to Google and then see, hey, Google, what kind of information can you give me? You may find out that, through Google that while, 12,000 people a month type in the word how to write a resume, there are 3,000 people a month that type in how to write a curriculum vitae. And that's now another idea that you can generate that Amazon might not have talked about, but Google will give you that. And you can make that connection of, that's not a bad keyword, or that's not a bad focus. Maybe I could be the only book that focuses on those people that use the word curriculum vitae instead of just resume or CV.
They're great hacks, and I think they're using something we're all familiar, because occasionally you see somebody sort of a humorous post on social media where if you type in Donald Trump is, and then you see what the 5 search things have come up in Google, and for whatever reason it's hilarious to some people. But
I'll jump in there though.
Yeah, go on.
A sad part on that is that you can actually make Google suggest things by typing things over and over again. So I could go and create one of those funny skits and say, how to, and then I type in how to cheat on somebody, how to,
invade
really
North
bad
Korea.
things, how to, and then Google will say, oh, okay, well, this person has typed those in before. Let's suggest those for this person's search. That's why it's important that when we do that for Amazon, we do the incognito mode so that our previous searches don't affect the results.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the point I was making is we're kind of aware they're there, but this is a great hack for turning that information from a trivial little moment on social media to something that's going to empower your marketing strategy.
Absolutely. Let Amazon and Google give you that information so you can start to see the words that real people use every day when they're trying to either address their pain point or look for their next fiction book.
Yeah.
Now, the second thing, and this is one of the most important things, is, okay, great. Amazon, somebody typed in the phrase how to write a book fast. Okay, how many people have actually typed that in? Because let's face it, if only 5 people type that into Amazon, that's not exactly a good book, target for you, right? Only 5 people a month, not going to make enough sales. So in this case, the free way of doing it is, like we talked about, is using Google's information and then trying to make that leap of saying, okay, well, if 6,700 people a month type that into Google, I'm sure there are enough people on Amazon typing it in. It's more popular than this term. But there's a software that we have called KDP Rocket that will actually tell you how many people on Amazon do that. But I'll go into those details later. So knowing how many people type something into Amazon is a huge benefit to a writer, so that you know how many people are potentially going to buy your book. All right. Now, the next thing that we need to know is whether or not people will pay for books on that subject. Like we talked about, right? There are a lot of people that look for ties on Amazon. Would they buy a book on ties? Probably not, So when you do that search, when you have those keywords and you found, wow, there's a lot of people typing this on Amazon. Wow, there are a lot of, Amazon thinks it's popular. Go ahead and put it into the search. Take your category to Kindle so it only shows the books. And then look at the books that show up on Amazon. When you see, go ahead and click on the first one, second one, and third one, and then scroll down and look at their Amazon bestseller rank. This number is the only indication of how well that book is selling, okay? Now, it's a number that ranges from 1 to 4.7 million. that might not do anything for you. But on kindlepreneur.com, my website, we have a free calculator where you can put that Amazon bestseller rank into it, and it will convert it into the number of books sold per day. So you can immediately start to see that, hey, look, the top 5 books, for this search term, they're selling like 4 to 8 copies a day. That's a good sign, right? Now you can start to figure out that these books are making money. So there is a market on Amazon, and they are buying these books. Now, finally, the third thing, and this is the most important one, okay, is the competition. So just because there are a lot of people buying these books doesn't mean that you can actually be a part of that action. So when we try to figure out how competitive a term is, the thing that I like to look at is that when we're looking at the books that rank for that search term, I really don't like to target a book or a search term that has 3 to 4 books that have an Amazon bestseller rank better than 10,000. That usually means it's super competitive, that there's a lot of sales. And if there's a lot of sales, these guys are going to fight like hard to stay at the top. The second thing that kind of makes me a little squeamish about it is if I see that the keyword that I typed in is in the title of like just about all of them.
Right.
The word Evernote is a great, juicy number looking keyword, but every 4,400 books that are out there on it have the word Evernote in the title. That's not. So you're going
to be lost if you go down that road.
Most likely, yes. The other thing that I like to look at is the authors. Let's face it. You may be an amazing author, but if Stephen King has like 3 books in that search term, don't think you're going to beat Stephen King. I like to do a quick Google search of the authors that show up and see if they have a giant, following, if they have a platform. Anybody who has a giant email list can quickly turn books into sales, right? Me without a giant email list or famous name, I'm not going to be able to beat that person. So I take a lot of these things into account. The other things are subjective things like looking at the covers, which we'll get into later, but one of the biggest factors for ranking at the top is your search to click ratio, where somebody types in that keyword, finds your book, clicks on it, and buys it. That is the greatest signal to Amazon that you should be near the top if your ratio is better than other books. Well, what drives people to click? The book cover, a good title and subtitle, right? And if you can't beat those, then how are you going to ever outrank those books? So that's kind of the 3 components.
Yeah.
People type it in, people will buy it, and the competition.
And I think the competition one's an interesting area because there's a balance here, I think, because as you quite rightly pointed out, if nobody's searching for it, obviously you don't want that. And if everybody's searching for it and it's got lots of entries there, you probably don't want that. Although I'm reminded of what another one of our interviewee guests who talks about online courses, David Siteman Garland, said. He said, when you're looking around to think of an idea for your online course, he said, avoid the ones that nobody else is doing. Don't think, oh, here's a gap in the market. He said, if you get loads of returns and loads of people are doing this course, that's the one you want to be doing because all it tells you is that's what people want. So there is that school of thought as well that even if lots of people, there's a handful of best-selling authors there, it's a hot category as well.
Well, and here's the thing, though. So 2 things that I recommend people do when they start doing this research is 1 is try to niche the demographic, and 2, work with synonyms, okay? So for example, let's use Evernote as one of those examples. It's a super popular term. It's less popular than it used to be over the past 3 years. But instead of writing just another one of the 4,400 Evernote books out there, why not try to choose a particular demographic that you're going to target, such as Evernote for teachers, Evernote for students, Evernote for writers. The reason why that's a great strategy is because if you go to Amazon and again, doing your research, you see that people type in every month Evernote for project management, right? If you type that in Amazon, you've got a super good chance that you're going to stay number 1 because you're the only book that truly is about that. It's in your title. It's one of your keywords. But on top of that, too, if I'm a project manager and I type in Evernote and there's a book that's the only book that says that, you better believe I'm going to buy that one. I mean, it's perfect. It says my name. So when you do this research, try not to just, this is a popular one, but let's see if I can bring it another level and truly make the one for for this group. So again, we said that's demographics. The next thing is I like to work with synonyms. We talked about seeing resumes, right? Instead of just writing another book on resumes, look at different ways of saying resume, curriculum vitae, CV, work portfolio. There's all these things that people are using when they're trying to describe this process. So those two things there can give you a whole bunch of new ideas that might actually give you that whole in demand but low competition situation, which we authors like.
Yeah, and I can completely see that. Okay, so you put a lot of thought into this area, and you're developing a kind of strategy that people can follow. How have you put this together? Have you got a course for this, Dave? Is this an ebook or?
No, actually, like I talked about before, we actually made software that does it all.
Okay.
So back in the day, I used to have to break out all these Excel sheets, and I would be recording numbers. I'd be typing in a search term, then I'd go to Google and look, and then I would go, and click on all 14 of the books that show up and record their Amazon bestseller rank, and I would do some major calculations, like I said, numbers geek. And finally, I would start to figure out, hey, this is a good idea. This book has a lot of demand, it has low competition, I can beat it, let's do this. Well, a little bit selfish-wise, I decided I would love to have a program that would do all this for me so that I could do it quicker. So we created this program called KDP Rocket, and it works on both Mac and PC. And the idea is you go into it, you type in your book idea, and KDP Rocket gives you all the suggestions that Amazon would give, plus Google, all in a giant list. And then you can go and click analyze on all of them, the ones that interest you. And it will tell you the number of competitors for that exact term, the average amount of money that the top books are making for that term, the number of people per month that type it into Google, as well as the estimated number of people per month that type it into Amazon, which is like one of the most super important numbers for anybody out there. And then finally, we give a competition score from 1 to 100, so you can actually look at all the competitors, all the books that would show up, and it gives just about every piece of information you would want to know about these so you can beat them.
Okay, so what your background for this? I mean, how do you create the program? You know somebody who codes, or do you done this yourself, or?
Yeah, no, actually, so I created all the calculations inside. It was basically like transferring my whole giant green book of notes for the past 4 years. And I met up with a team. When I was in Sri Lanka, there was actually a whole bunch of programmers there, and I met up with this one team called cabbageapps.com, and phenomenal guys. And so we actually were able to kind of put together the software. And we did the slow rollout because, man, software is crazy. It requires a lot of work to verify that everything works out. And we did, and yeah, it was a great experience. Anybody who's ever looking at starting their own software, by the way, highly recommend you get to know the programmers before.
Right.
Oh, it's a scary world out there.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people offering to do it. So, okay, right, let's get back to some of the stuff that's going to be a good takeaway, I think, for people listening. And we were just getting into the clicking ratio, so return in search to click. There's other things that are going to play a part in that decision to click there, and you mentioned cover briefly. Is cover something that you can explore, you can test as well in advance?
Well, yeah, so what we just talked about was the book idea validation process, and I just want to reaffirm to everybody, this is a very important thing to do before you start writing your book, because even if say, for example, you do the research and you find out there's no market that wants to read that book on Amazon, that doesn't mean you can't write it, but it does mean that you're going to you can't depend on Amazon to sell your book for you. So you're going to have to go find people and bring them to your book. Now, if in this validation process you validated and you're like, yes, there is a market, Amazon will sell books, sell my book once I write it, that's good. Now let's fast forward and say you've written the book, okay? You have done your research, you've got your keywords. How do you actually benefit from this? This is the big question a lot of people ask me. There's two things you got to do. One, you got to get indexed, and number two, you've got to increase your rankings, right? Index, what we mean by that is to get Amazon to acknowledge that when somebody types in that phrase that your book should show up. Now, back in the day, it used to be that all you had to do is select one of your 7 keywords, as when you go to publish, right, that Amazon asks for, insert your 7 keywords here. all you had to do was just put it in there and you'd show up for it. Well, that's not the case anymore. As a matter of fact, the more competitive a term is, the less likely you're actually going to show up for it, even if you choose it. So some of the ways that you can do this is that once you publish your book and you select your Kindle keywords, having the keyword in your title or subtitle is a very big indicator whether or not you can show up for it.
Okay.
So if you publish your book and you see that you didn't show up for this keyword, you may want to think about changing your subtitle to include that keyword legitimately and not stuffing here.
Yeah.
And that will help Amazon to index. Another thing that I found from a couple of case studies is that just by having your keyword in the look inside portion of your book, Amazon indexes that front part, and if it sees it, that's another indication as well. So those are some things that you can think about doing just to show up.
So just to reiterate, this potentially is a very important process for people with maybe a dozen books out, to go through each one of those and optimize exactly how they're going to perform in terms of Amazon's algorithms and keywords.
Yeah, or just making sure that you're actually showing up for the keyword. I have a lot of people that said that, I did the research and I changed up the keyword, and I put it in there. I was like, great. And did you check to make sure that your book shows up for it? Oh, no, I didn't. And then they go back and they find out, wow, I don't even show up for it. I was like, well, we're going to have to take that next step so that you show up for it. Otherwise, you're not going to benefit from the keyword. There are people that do what they call like the reviving a dead book, where, the sales have sucked and then they decide to change up some of the keywords to see if that's, puts a little fire into the sales. 9 times out of 10, when they change that keyword, it's not enough to actually get it to index. So something for the people out there. Now, once you do have it indexed, though, it's now time to convince Amazon that you should rank at the top. Okay? And when you do this, it's super important that you keep one phrase in your mind. What makes Amazon more money? We talked about it, right? If say 1,000 people a month type in how to write a book. If you rank number 1 on average, you can expect 27% of those people to click on your book, which is 270 people a month. If you rank number 2, it's only 13%, and that's 130 people a month. And if you rank number 6, it's 6%, which is, well, sadly, only 60 people per month. So being able to rank at the top is super important. But Amazon knows this, okay? They know that right at the top is prime real estate. So the book that's at the top is most likely to be bought. So they don't want to put the crappiest book out there, the one that nobody really cares about, or not the one that people are searching for at the top. They want the most likely book that makes them money at the top. So how do you do this? Okay. Well, the key is making sure that you're trying to rank for a keyword that, well, is the right market. Okay. I tell fiction authors all the time, I would much rather rank for Space Marines than for the word science fiction. Okay. Even though there are thousands of people typing in the word science fiction, a high percentage of those people are not looking for my Space Marines book. They're looking for, all the other different types, or they don't even know what they're looking for. They're just trying to start their book buying habit. But if they type in the word Space Marines and they see my Space Marine looking cover and my really cool Space Marine title and description, I've got a really good chance that I do get the click and I get the buy. All right, so again, it starts with making sure that you're targeting the right kind of words that your buyers would type in. All right, the second thing is that making sure that, you do have a cover that truly signifies what they typed in. If somebody typed in the word Evernote for writers and your cover and title doesn't even mention writers, you've lost that capability to really grab a hold of that market. They're going to second guess whether or not your book is the right book. They may just go back to typing in Evernote and just seeing what the most popular books are, but you lost it, okay? And then finally, and this is one little hot tip that I give people. If you have people that you know are going to buy your book, okay, like they're going to buy, they're fans or super fans or whatever, instead of just giving them a link to your book, tell them to go to Amazon and type in whatever the phrase is, find your book and buy it. Okay, because when they do that, it looks to Amazon that the person typed in Evernote for writers, and then they didn't select those other books, they selected yours, and then they bought it. you've just shown Amazon that you not only deserve to be there for the keyword, but that you were the one that people were looking for when they were going to buy a book. And you'll quickly see your rankings rise very quick, very fast.
Yeah, that's great. And there's a theme in terms of the the Space Marine example, and also the example you gave us of if something's a very broad category like Evernote, then saying Evernote for project managers is what we do know about the digital space, which is traditionally where we are at the moment, is that niche works. There's the old thing about show me the niches, I'll show you the riches. So if you can find even if it's a big, overwhelming area, science fiction is pretty big. If you can find that, the more you narrow down and focus your marketing over those people it just makes sense, doesn't it? Your conversion rate for people searching on Space Marine is going to be higher than the conversion rate of people searching on fiction or science fiction.
Absolutely, yeah. And at the same time, one of the benefits that happens is that when Amazon starts to see that your book converts well, they'll naturally start to put you in other searches that you weren't thinking about. They'll start to show your book off more just to see, hey, look at this. This book made a lot of good money, a high conversion rate for a certain phrase. Let's see if it also does well for this, this, and this. So having a high conversion rate for something actually, propagates to other things. And that's when you start to have an exponential growth in just organic Amazon sales.
Okay. That's great, Dave. We're going to do a giveaway. I think you could put together some sort of crib sheet or PDF for people to give them some top tips here.
Yeah, I've actually got a whole checklist that you can use to be able to go through this process. I know that what we just talked about was very meaty and a lot of steps, but we'll have that for you guys to be able to use. And also, I'm going to give away 3 copies of KDP Rocket to your listeners for you guys to be able to hand out. So you guys can do that and check it out. And like I said, I just wanted to recap with, again, this doesn't mean that when you do the research, if your numbers don't match with what you want, you shouldn't write the book. Never say that. Writing is an art. But what I am saying is that if you do that research and you find out there isn't a market on Amazon, it means you got to go find that market somewhere else.
Yeah.
Be prepared for that. It's
about having your eyes open, which is going to help you at the beginning. So your home is kindlepreneur.com, and you're a very active, brilliantly energetic guy in this space. So you do some great videos. We've been very envious about your new man cave set up there. Mark's already emailed me saying, why doesn't mine look like that? I knew that would come. So that's great, Dave. You say 3 copies of the software?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's do this then. So in a moment, Mark and I will give the link for you to download the checkbox, the checklist that Dave's very kindly created for us. And of those people who sign up and download that, 3 of you will pick randomly. We'll get a free copy of the software. Dave, thank you so much indeed for joining us. We will speak to you again because you're full of good ideas and you're a guy who can move people's careers forward, and that's great.
No problem, and thank you so much for having me.
I told you it was a nice shot.
It's a very nice shot.
So we're now at the end of our recording day here, so we've got a splash of colour in the background, splash of colour there. It's now dyed because the batteries are so low, there's no blue, just looking a little bit normal over there, Mark. But I was quite motivated, and I think it's Dave, I think he said it's his daughter who does a lot of the techie stuff, so sets stuff up for him. That's always useful to have. You've got me.
I was going to say, basically what you're saying there is a teenager is more effective than 2 so-called professionals.
Yeah, all the time. It's absolutely no question. Well, we work in an area that's being transformed by young people. Young people.
God.
And so we cling on as we can. So that's great. Now, I've teased ahead that, and as Dave mentioned, we've got 3 licenses to give away of KDP Rocket for you to have a full go on that. This book validating process, idea validating software. And to enter the competition, to put your name forward to potentially be drawn out and get one of those 3 licenses, just simply go to selfpublishingformula.com/KDP Rocket. All lowercase. In fact, I think it's case insensitive, aren't they, these URLs? don't think it really matters, but we just say all lowercase. And the PDF, which I mentioned, which Dave has very kindly put together, it's a really nicely put together PDF on validating your idea. And I'd really recommend you download this, selfpublishingformula.com/KDP Rocket. I told you about his energy and stuff. I really like that. I really like Dave's approach to life. It's that in itself is quite an important thing, regardless of what some people, the detail of what they're saying to you, the way that they approach their business, their life, they organise themselves. I think that can be quite motivating.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, good energy is contagious. Of course, we've just had lunch.
Yeah, you're feeling a little bit sleepy now.
Postprandial is that's the new word for today. But yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's exact. I'm going to go and have a sleep after this, I think.
Your afternoon nap.
I am, yes.
We've had lunch with your lovely, cuddly little boy.
We have, yes.
Who's
pretending to be a dinosaur most of the time.
He was. He looked good roars.
And then very excited about the hand dryer in the toilet.
He was unusually excited about hand dryers, I would say. My children are terrified. Even,
my daughter is terrified of them.
Well, most children are because they're loud and noisy.
He loved it.
Does Samuel think that the hand dryer is a dinosaur?
I suppose that's possible. Yeah, maybe some kind of air-blowing dinosaur.
Yeah, but your wife said he's not frightened of anything, Samuel, or very little.
He's frightened of polar bears. Okay. He's frightened of lots of things just before he goes to bed at night, which I think is an excuse to have us stay up with him for as long as possible.
I think it's that's how they work. I think it's okay to be frightened by polar bears. I think faced with a polar bear, most of us would discover that we're frightened of polar bears.
Yes, very true.
Good. I don't know how we got onto this, but anyway, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Thank you so much indeed to Dave Chesson, our guest. Don't forget those URLs, and if you're watching the YouTube version, we'll put something on the screen that you can click to make it easy for you to go to those sites. And don't forget, you can download our ebook, which contains a lot of information that we've gone over in the podcast in the past. Really absolutely packed ebook, and you can get that at selfpublishingformula.com/vault, VAULT. And we're going to vault out of here. That sounded like a Radio 2 link.
Nice segue.
Nice, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing Formula podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingformula.com for more information, show notes, and links on today's topics. You can also sign up for our free video series on using Facebook ads to grow your mailing list. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.